Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel ahead of the 24-25 season in FPL. I'm your host FPL Phillips, or Eddie. I'm delighted to be back making more videos for you this season. And in this one, I've got some picks that I think are definitely going under the radar, ones that I'm particularly interested in, and ones that are in my team at the moment. I'm not just going to pitch to you players who aren't going to make my 11. These guys are in my side currently. That's why I'm going for them. I'm going to compare them alongside some other assets as well to put them into context. I'm not just going to throw random stats at you, but hopefully you guys find it an enjoyable, chill back experience whilst I sit here and have a brew. So without any more messing about, shall we get into it and kick things off with my content for this season. So yeah, apologies if I'm a bit rusty. It is my first video of the new campaign, but the first player that we're going to kick things off with is Munoz at Crystal Palace, who I think is a fantastic asset. I've watched a little bit of him at international level, but I've not watched him an awful lot for Colombia, but it's just reinforced what I saw from him at the end of last season's campaign, and I think 5 million is too cheap a price for him. A lot of people are going to be going Anderson, and there's good reason for it. He's at 4.5 million, which is a very, very nice price for him when we've seen him be at 5 million plus in the past. So a lot of people leaning that way, and there is a big appeal there, hence the 20% ownership compared to Munoz's 4%. However, for that 0.5 more, I think you do get an awful lot of added goal threat, which is a really key stat. And it just gets forward so much and is such an attacking force in that Crystal Palace side. Now, the stats in some areas are a little closer than you think. Expected FPL points, 4.57 compared to 4.09, though, per 90 minutes, that is going to add up. And the added threat of those attacking returns, I think in this case, is worth the difference of that 0.5 million, where you might spend it on, between other areas in your team. I don't think there's any other areas where I can see that 0.5 million going quite as far. And it's also a really nice differential where if you get that clean sheet, getting a goal and the bonus points that come with it often on top of that can make a really big difference to your rank. So you're covering those Anderson points by going for Munoz, but you've also got that threat there. And for 0.5 more, I think it's worth the upgrade. I'm a big advocate of this move, of this player. That's why he's in my draft, and he's been in there the entire time in pre-season so far. I think there's very little chance I go into game week 1 without him. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on these two assets down below in the comments. Which one are you going to go for? I understand that with benching and rotation, Anderson could be more appealing to people who want to bench, say, in game week 3 when Crystal Palace go up against Chelsea. But for me, I like the idea of Munoz at 5 million. I like starting him the majority of game weeks anyway. Maybe I might bench him in that week, but I'm not scared to bench 5 million's worth of defender. I think it's a bit of a farce and maybe a taboo around benching players who cost more than 5.5 million. And for me, he's going to be almost locked in my team before this season kicks off. So let me know what you guys think. Let's move in to player 2 now. And player 2 is going to be Brennan Johnson in that kind of 6.5 million bracket, where I think it's pretty key to have an asset. Now, a lot will have Eze in at 7 million, and there have been some rumours actually circulating of Eze maybe making a move over to Spurs. He's got, that 60 million release clause, so that could definitely shake things up. But the way things stand, and assuming that move doesn't happen, I think Brennan Johnson looks a really, really strong asset for this season. He's like 90 to 90% certain of having that right wing spot, and I think that kind of 10 to 20% uncertainty is putting a lot of people off. But for me, I think that's the number I would put on it. And his ownership, henceforth, with that uncertainty, is at 1.9%, ridiculously low for a player that had such a strong end to last season. He had ridiculous XG stats, as you can see, 0.40. The XA is looking pretty healthy as well. Per 90 minutes, those are very good. He had 17 goal involvements in 26 starts, which is very, very healthy indeed. And I think that he'll improve a lot. He'll have settled into that Spurs side more. And I think if he does have that position on lock, then he's going to be a really good asset this year. And I want to have someone in that price bracket, as well as Eze, who I'm very unlikely to want to move on if he's still at Palace, who I could then switch over. Maybe, you start off with an Nkunku. Maybe people with Nkunku by game week 4, game week 5 will be switching over to Brennan Johnson. So I think it's a position where you can take a bit of a gamble, maybe try to get ahead of the curve. And that's what I'm doing with Brennan Johnson in that pick. I like him as an asset. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, there's some tricky fixtures in game week 3 and game week 4. But then again, I'm not afraid to bench him. I'm very, very much an advocate, as you'll maybe see in an upcoming video, for squad depth this year and having players on the bench to cover the starting 11 if you do get injuries, those short-term injuries, 1 or 2 weeks, where you need the cover. You can bench Brennan Johnson if he gets injured or for those fixtures and still bring in an equally strong asset. So whether it's the poor fixtures, whether it's injuries, I think squad depth could be quite key for these first few game weeks, and people are going to see that it does make a difference this year when you're trying to save up those transfers to maybe use them after a chip, or maybe just deploy some sort of mini wild card, saving up 4 or 5 free transfers over a number of game weeks. So for that reason, I like Brennan Johnson, and despite the poor fixtures, I'm happy to go with him at that price. Let me know what you guys think of him. Are you on Nkunku at the moment, who seems to be the most popular pick? Leon Bailey's also one who I'm seeing getting some popularity. There's Garnacho at that kind of price point. Who's your current 6.5 million midfielder? Or do you only have Eze and then maybe an Anthony Gordon as well as Palmer and Salah, whoever your premiums are? And Ramsey, of course, at 5 million is kind of that lower priced player. So, Brennan Johnson, do you have a 6.5 million midfielder in your team other than Eze? If so, who? Let me know down below in the comments. I'll try and get back to you and have some discussion around who you think the best pick is, maybe. So as I said, he's kind of my pick that I'm going with as a differential and maybe doesn't have the best long-term fixtures. He's got those tricky ones in game week 3 and game week 4. Maybe by the end of game week 2, I'm already willing to jump off Brennan Johnson. Whereas Forest have some very good long-term fixtures, and I really like the look of going for one of their attackers. Now, Chris Wood at 6.0 million looks a very, very healthy option. We've got Hudson-Odoi and Alanga in there at 5.5 million as well. Apologies for the slight mistake on the graphic. We've got the ownership numbers in for them, and again, they're very, very low at the moment. Chris Wood only at 3.8%, Hudson-Odoi at 5.2%, despite having the worst data of the bunch. Now, I think this is interesting, and I think Forest fans will advocate for Hudson-Odoi over Alanga, maybe in favour of more secure minutes. When you look at the data there, Alanga's XG and expected assists are both far superior to the former's numbers. It goes along with the expected FPL points as well, 4.77 compared to Hudson-Odoi's 4.47. So I think if you're going to go for that midfield option that isn't Morgan Gibbs-White, then I'd personally take a little bit of a gamble and maybe go for Alanga. Hope he gets the numbers. He's looked very good on the eye test as well. When I've watched Forest, I think he looks a standout asset and the biggest threat. Maybe that's when he's been playing some of the bigger teams, and in those games against, the easier fixtures that are making Forest so appealing, maybe an asset like a Gibbs-White or a Chris Wood could be the one to go for. But I do really like Chris Wood as well, and 6.15 expected FPL points per 90, and his FPL points per 90 in general were brilliant last season. His expected return, he outdid that with his output. 6.53 FPL points per 90 is a ridiculous number. He did brilliantly. There is just that lingering Awoniyi threat that could be there for him. So when you're looking at that second striker role, there are other options you can move to. If Armstrong or Muniz start off the season really well, you could shift off Chris Wood. But then I've already got Brennan Johnson in my team where he's a little bit uncertain. And you don't want to build up too many of those picks where you're not really certain of their minutes. So maybe I'll still head and just go for one of those two assets. But for now, I really like the look of both of them. So yeah, Chris Wood, Hudson-Odoi, Alanga. I think one Forest attacker could be a really cool pick in teams at the start of the year. Let me know if you guys have one in your side right now. And then we'll get on to the last pick of the video. And it's going to be the man that you saw in the thumbnail if you look closely. It is Maatsen at Villa. And he's been signed for a pretty big number to sign and play left back for Villa. And now I've seen a lot of people argue against Maatsen, and maybe his ownership's only as high as 6% due to the fact that there's already two pretty well-renowned left-backs at Aston Villa in the form of Luca Dean and Alex Moreno. However, from what I've been seeing around it, you don't really spend that kind of money on a left-back, and Villa fans seem to think he'll certainly be first choice. And when he is, he's got fantastic numbers. Now, I would maybe advocate for looking a bit elsewhere. We have very limited numbers from Maatsen in the Premier League, and that's what OptaStats and everything are based on. So the numbers you're seeing here might be a little bit skewed. You can go and look at his data from the Bundesliga and things like that elsewhere. His XG and XA, though, when he's been on the pitch in the Premier League, have been fantastic. He's obviously been playing in different positions then, so it's very, very difficult to judge him on data. But his eye test, he's more than certainly past that. And I think he'll be a great force this year. And I think Villa in general are still going to be good. They have replaced Douglas Luiz. I think Onana is a good asset to do that. And I think that Emery is going to have that team playing well. And I do think that they'll have an equally strong season to ones they've had in the previous campaigns. So Maatsen is going to be in my team alongside Munoz, and then a premium defender like Gvardiol. And then I'll have a 4.5 million on the bench, maybe even 2, as mentioned, with the depth being a thing this year that I think could be big. So yeah, I realise it's maybe spending a bit more on defence than most people would, or has been traditionally done in FPL, but I think the difference here between Maatsen and someone like a Konsa is going to be significant. I think the ownership going in favour of Konsa, and the majority of people are going to have Konsa. If Villa sign a right back in particular, that limits Konsa's attacking threat, which is pretty minute anyway. And you've, again, got that solidity of if they keep a clean sheet, you're going to get the clean sheet points, hopefully. And then you've got the chance that Maatsen got an attacking return in that game. If so, you've got a clean sheet and the attacking return, then there's a high chance of some bonus points coming your way as well. So very happy with my selection of Maatsen for now. Hopefully pre-season will reveal more, make me more confident in some of these selections. I know I've asked you guys to leave a lot of comments, but just pick one of the many questions that I've asked you and drop it down below, because I want to have everyone interacting with the channel and getting all that discussion flowing down below in the comments. So I'll be sure to reply to each and every one of you who leaves a comment. Thank you very much for choosing to tune back in to another Fantasy Football Figures video. Check out the site via the links below if you don't already use it. Fantastic tool that I use for all my FPL tools and bits and bobs. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully, I'll see you in some more content in the future. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it, and leave a thumbs up if you did enjoy. With that, I'll bid you ta-da, and hopefully you have a good rest of your day. Bye.